Welcome back, Fab Fellows. Today our story takes us in an alternate timeline during the Belle Epoque era in the late 19th century, where vampires and Oni casually mingle with humans in the same world. Here lives Tsugaru, an experimental half-Oni famously dubbed the Oni Slayer. Tsugaru makes a living by killing monsters in cage fights as part of a circus act. One evening, a woman in a French-made outfit attacks Tsugaru. Their scuffle is interrupted by a woman's voice coming from the birdcage the maid was carrying. The voice belongs to a severed head of an immortal, who introduces herself as Aya, along with her maid bodyguard, Shizuku. She has a peculiar desire to find death and asks Tsugaru to end her life. She explains that she is an immortal, but recently her body was taken away by someone, and living just as a severed head is no longer desirable for her. Being a half-Oni, Tsugaru is the only one with the ability to kill her. In return, she proposes a deal to Tsugaru, offering him a chance to prolong his lifespan as she's aware that Tsugaru is gradually being consumed by his Oni half and is on the verge of turning into a full-fledged monster. Intriguing, right? Let's dive into this whimsical adventure. And hey, if you enjoy the adventure, don't forget to subscribe to support us, as we are a new channel and need your support to keep spinning these tales. Returning to the story, as they share their pasts, Tsugaru and Aya discover that their problems trace back to a foreigner with an M engraved on his cane. Tsugaru confesses that he initially intended to embrace his transformation into a mindless Oni, seeking revenge on the circus and its bloodthirsty audience who treated his fights as entertainment. However, Aya provides him with a reason to delay his death. She shares that being an immortal, her body parts can extend anyone's life, and in exchange for his help, she promises to give him her body fluid. Tsugaru suggests a different approach. Rather than ending her life, he proposes retrieving her body so she can live fully. This way, he can seek his revenge since their common enemy is the man with the M on his cane. Aya agrees and offers her saliva to Tsugaru to delay his death. Then, they seal the commitment with a kiss and a makeshift contract. In 1898, a mansion in Legiver is the residence of a vampire family attempting to reconcile with humans following Count Dracula's demise. Lord Goddard returns home to discover his wife, Hannah, murdered. Frustrated with the police's progress in finding the culprit, Goddard opts to enlist the Cage User, a private detective who has recently built a reputation for solving supernatural cases around Europe. The Cage User happens to be Tsugaru, although he admits he's more of an apprentice to the true detective that is Aya's head. Examining the crime scene, Aya raises several questions. She wonders how the murderer knew the precise location of a silver stake, managed to break into the store, accurately predicted the victim's whereabouts to kill her without resistance, yet made a sloppy mistake by leaving behind evidence of a bottle of holy water. While Aya and Goddard contemplate these mysteries, a mysterious hunter approaches from the woods outside. Aya interviews Lord Goddard, his family, and their servants at dinner about their activities the hour before the murder. She narrows her suspects down to Alfred the butler and the older son, Claude, as potential suspects, but faces difficulty resolving a couple of conflicting details. Later, while walking in the woods, Goddard is attacked by a hunter named Joseph. Goddard easily overpowers the hunter, but Tsugaru and Aya intervene, preventing Goddard from killing Joseph and opting to interrogate him instead. Joseph discloses that another hunter named Hugo had visited the mansion 3 days prior with intentions to slay a vampire using a silver stake. Hugo was acquainted with someone inside who was willing to assist him. Concerned when Hugo didn't return, Joseph attempted to complete the mission himself. Listening to Joseph's account, Tsugaru lets him go, and Aya requests Goddard to gather everyone inside the mansion. She expresses confidence that she can now pinpoint the murderer. Presenting her evidence, Aya deduces that the true culprit is the younger son, Rael. In response, Rael attempts to attack Aya, but Tsugaru promptly throws him outside and starts beating him. Aya informs Lord Goddard that Rael involved Hugo in a scheme to kill a vampire using a silver stake. However, when Goddard defeated the hunter, Rael substituted the stake with holy water, allowing it to freeze in the cold outside, and later used it to murder Hannah. Rael, attempting to make it seem like a human committed the murder, spilled some of Hannah's blood on the silver stake in the stockroom, and hoped this will provoke his father into retaliating against humans. Meanwhile, outside, Tsugaru kills Rael. The sun rises, and Aya inquires about a man with an M on his cane from Goddard. He explains that a few days prior, a man named Professor approached him, offering to take him to London, but he declined the offer. In 1899, a gentlemanly Parisian thief and a master of disguise named Lupin recruits a mysterious Persian orphan named Eric, who lives beneath a theater in Paris, to steal the penultimate night diamond from Phil's mansion in London. Meanwhile, Tsugaru and Aya attempt to learn the professor's name from a London cane shop. However, they are accosted by two men and picked up by London police who already have twin thieves in custody. The men turn out to be the legendary private detective Sherlock Holmes and his faithful companion Dr. Watson, one of the two detectives hired by Fogg to counter Lupin's threat. the other being the cage user. Fogg is revealed to be a wealthy Londoner with a large mansion containing several treasures of his travels going around the world in 80 days. Upon hearing them, the police transport the detectives straight to Fogg's mansion. Fogg shows off his security measures to the detectives, Inspector Lestrade, and 2 members of the esteemed Royce group. He also displays the diamond locked in a small puzzle safe made of silver. Fogg claims the diamond and the safe were both made by German dwarves who left a message behind for future generations. Both detectives try to think of how Lupin could infiltrate the chamber with the many layers of security, and Aya suggests an unlikely but not impossible method, playfully dropping a hint involving Ishikawa Gomen, teasing Tsugaru in the process. Later, Mycroft Holmes, the elder brother of Sherlock, pays a visit to Holmes and Watson in their flat on Baker Street but quickly deduces that Holmes is a Lupin in disguise who is exposed when the real Holmes arrive. Lupin leaps out a window, promising to steal Fogg's treasure. Mycroft cautions Sherlock to be wary of the Royce Group's agents, suspecting they intend to steal the diamond themselves and frame Lupin for the crime. Later, the twin thieves from earlier run over Aya with their vehicle, but she is rescued by Lupin, who reveals himself to the cage user group. Tsugaru attacks him, but Lupin is able to knock him unconscious and warn Aya to stay off the case. That night, Lupin puts his plan into action while Aya sends a note to Sherlock that she intends to watch from above ground. Inside the secure chamber, Sherlock fires multiple rounds into the keyholes, jamming the locks and sealing him, Watson, Fogg, and Inspector Ganimard inside. However, when the appointed time comes, an explosion in the moat to the mansion causes water to fill the underground chamber through the air vent. One of the Royce's agent, Fatima, releases the group from the flooded chamber, but the silver safe and diamond are gone. Sherlock rapidly deduces that Lupin took on the disguise of Inspector Ganimard and aided Eric in pulling the safe up through the broken vent. However, Sherlock cleverly concealed the diamond in Watson's jacket, but amid the confusion, Lupin seizes the opportunity, grabbing the diamond and making his escape with Eric. They arrive at the greenhouse, only to find that Aya had been hiding inside the safe the whole time, and she calls for Tsugaru. Shizuku and Tsugaru get ready to confront Lupin and Eric, but the situation takes a turn when Royce's agent, Reynolds, appears and seizes the diamond. Out of nowhere, the access bridge is blown up, and the professor and his entourage storm the mansion grounds, slaughtering several guards in their search for the diamond. A chaotic battle ensues across the mansion, involving Lupin, Eric, Holmes, Watson, the cage user group, the Royce's agents, the professor's group, and the police detachment, all vying for control of the precious diamond. As the battle rages on in the chapel, Camilla, a beautiful and deadly vampire with incredibly swordsmanship who works for the professor, manages to subdue Shizuku, while Eric confounds Fatima, and Lupin temporarily allies with Tsugaru to fight Reynolds. Meanwhile, Holmes tries to think of a strategy to counter Aleister's poison darts. Aleister is an English magician and cult leader who currently works with the professor. The fights are interrupted as the legendary English serial killer, Jack the Ripper, bursts into the chapel, killing both Fatima and Reynolds before taking the diamond. Lupin and Eric decide to flee, not wanting to risk fighting Jack. Meanwhile, the professor himself appears before Holmes, Watson, and Aya, revealing that he is none other than James Moriarty. He admits he has Aya's body, and that he injected the blood of an immortal mixed with that of an Oni into several subjects. But only Jack survived, making him powerful and nearly indestructible. He now wants to add the blood of a werewolf to make Jack even more powerful. Jack seizes the diamond and, during the confrontation with Tsugaru, identifies him as a survivor of Moriarty's Oni experiment. Jack then signals Moriarty's group, the Banquet Organization. Their mission is complete, and they leave. However, Tsugaru reveals that he swiped the diamond from Jack's pocket, and Aya uses it to decipher the location of German werewolves. 8 years earlier in the southwestern German mountains, a werewolf was pursued and attacked by a group of villagers, but she sacrificed herself to save her daughter. In the present, Tsugaru, Aya, and Shizuku search the area for werewolves, and near the village of Heulendorf they encounter the village doctor, Heinemann. Heinemann, having heard of the cage user, pleads with them to investigate the abduction of village girls occurring on rainy nights every 4 months, with the victims later found torn to pieces. They meet the villagers, who are quite hostile, but Aya convinces Gustav, father of the crippled Louise, the latest girl to be taken, that she can identify the culprit within 2 days. Aya determines that a werewolf descended the chimney in wolf form, transformed into a werewolf, messed up the room in an apparent rage, and wrapped Louise on a cloth before escaping with her through a now broken window. Aya tells Gustav he is unlikely to see Louise alive again, but will do her utmost to discover the killer. Subsequently, Aya, Tsugaru, and Shizuku visit the elderly, bedridden mayor, who only agrees to point them towards the mystical werewolf village in the Forest of Fangs after Aya pledges to name the killer within 2 days. Meanwhile, the two Royce's agents Kylie and Alice arrive there by train. Aya tells the mayor that she suspects a werewolf lives in Heulendorf and has come from outside, and even though he already has investigated the outsiders, Heinemann the doctor, Sina the engineer, and Alma the artist, and eliminated them as suspects, she wants to question them. During their conversation with the mayor, Aya, Tsugaru, and Shizuku discovered that these werewolves had been selectively breeding and had become immune to silver and holy water, though they were still vulnerable to fire. Later, Aya questions Sina, the engineer, who explains that 13 years ago the village took in the pregnant woman Rosa, who later gave birth to Jut, but they were both killed after being identified as werewolves. Aya then questions Alma, the artist, harboring suspicions that she might be lying about her past. Then, while the trio interrogates Heinemann, they get interrupted by the Royce agents Alice and Kyle. A fight breaks out initially, but Aya manages to strike a deal with them. In exchange for being allowed to continue investigating, she would give them the location of the werewolf village. That night, the trio hurries to Alma's house after noticing a crowd gathering there with torches. Inside, Alma, seemingly losing control, confesses that she killed and ate Louise before she transforms into a golden werewolf. Shizuku and the Royce agents attempt to stop Alma, but, as expected, silver bullets prove useless against her, and she escapes into the forest pursued by Tsugaru carrying Aya. Tsugaru and the werewolf engage in a fierce fight, and the werewolf throws Aya's cage over the waterfall at Misty Hollow. However, Shizuku saves Aya before falling to the watery depths below herself. After Aya uncovers Alma as the werewolf, the mayor agrees to tell her how to use the diamond to find the Forest of Fangs, and they leave before dawn accompanied by the Royce agents. That was it from today. Thanks for watching. Do not forget to subscribe. Stay tuned for more exciting stories.